Well, hi there and welcome back. Today's project we're about to start is a Singer treadle sewing machine from 1900 something, I think. The reason I'm doing this one next is because the kid, Savannah, has some project where she wants to sew something. And I gave her a little needle sewing kit, and I'm not sure what she's working on, but she needs to sew big stuff. And so not as a hobby necessarily, but she just has a practical purpose to sew stuff. So now is the time to strike while the iron's hot and see if we can get this working. Background story on this: it was my grandmother's. I know that she did some seamstress work in like the 40s, 30s, 40s. It was kind of a common way, semi-skilled way for a woman to make some money back in the lean years. And I don't know if this is the one that she had at that point to actually use, but I do remember that this was long since shoved in a corner with stuff on top of it, ever since I can remember. So early 70s. It hadn't been touched in a long time. So this could be the one that went back that far. So let me show you what we've got inside here. All right, so this is the in storage, nice piece of furniture mode. When you need to use it, you open this up, then this comes out, under. Okay, and now you're in business. The belt that's broken comes through here, spins this when you get the flywheel going. All right, but don't really need to get to that. This is not seized, but it won't. It tries to do something, but it slips. So somewhere in the last 10 years or so, this has got just the last little bit of corrosion in there, and it doesn't seem to do anything. My hope really is that there's no pieces missing, but I wouldn't know if there are. I also don't have any idea how to use one of these things. So even if I get it fixed, it may not seem fixed because I don't know what I'm doing. But we'll figure that all out. Cosmetically, there's the veneer here is not that great, but I think it'll be fine if I can clean it up. Here we have a little bit of structure there. There's more corrosion on this than I would consider a handsome patina. So I'm going to figure out how deep I want to get into really polishing this stuff up. We'll see. All right, so I think what I got to do next is just take the machine element out and carefully start taking notes and seeing if I can get the thing to kind of move and do stuff. All right, well that was easy. This is going to be an easy project if it all stays like that. It won't stay like that. Okay, so that came right off. Now I've got to start. I know that if this spins, this is supposed to activate the whole thing and things start going. Here we have a little sight window, something in there moving, but let's see. Okay. Well, basically, I just need to poke at this until I figure out what it's binding on. So one thing I'm glad to see is that it does seem to have what they call a bobbin in here. I'm no expert on this, but somehow there's thread on the bottom, thread on the top. There's thread loaded in the bobbin, and it all works like magic. Look at this, it's still got thread hanging in it. Be interesting to get a snapshot of the room when this was last loaded. It would have been the 50s. All right, so this should spin continuously. Okay, just spin. Stuff happens down here, stuff happens up here. but it only goes back and forth. Okay, so like I said, part of this energy comes down here, and part of it goes through the arm up here, and the needle goes up and down. Hey, so great news. I got some nice fancy sewing machine oil. There's about a half dozen little holes in here. I guess you just keep throwing oil in these. Oiled it up and came right loose. See, now it goes through its full cycle. Okay, so it was just jammed up. All right, but that's not the end of the story. It's not good to go. Now it's just barely not jammed. So there was some dried oil, hardened, and kind of seized it up. And now I've got it moving. So I know that all the parts are there and nothing's broken. But I need to now actually really get all that old gunk out of there and stuff. So the real decision now, the real philosophy is anything that I can very simply take off. There's only one way to take it off, one way to put it back. Then I'm going to really do that and clean it up. When I come to something that's attached to 3 different things and there's an adjustment ratchet or something, then I'll probably just clean that externally as much as I can. You do no harm, because this is working now. If I just like exploded this thing all over the table, getting it back together, every industry has tricks that you have to learn the hard way. And I really, this is kind of a one-off. I'm not looking to become a Singer repair expert. So that's going to be the decision stuff now, is to know what to really clean well and what looks like could be a can of worms. So yeah, I'm going to start really cleaning this thing out. All right, so what I've done is I did pretty much take apart the whole, I guess I should call it a head here, and cleaned everything up. I wanted to do that really thoroughly because this stuff moves fast. So just like in a clock or a lot of machinery, the pieces that are moving fast, if any little bit of drag gives a whole lot of leverage, has a whole lot of leverage all the way back to the system. So I cleaned these all up and they move very nicely now. Okay, looked under the bottom. Those things, there's some rods going back and forth. I'm not going to really take those apart. They don't move a whole lot. So like a little bit of friction at like these joints that move just a bit isn't going to kill me. I am going to flip it over and look at this, see if I can get into there a little bit better, because that stuff moves pretty fast too. And here, as far as like these big pieces, I'm definitely not going to try and take all that apart. These are big pieces up by the power, and so a little bit of gunk in there shouldn't hurt anything, shouldn't go downstream very much. All right, see you in a minute. All right, folks, so this morning I decided to kind of jump into the cleaning. Just it seems like a kind of mindless thing to do. As many suggest, I'm starting out with just water. I'm using distilled water because I had a jug right here, but that's probably not necessary. And some people use cotton balls. I had some lens cleaners. And I'm just wiping it off with water. Not really rewarding. I think like most people, I would like the super polymer, brand new space age stripper sort of thing where it's like oven cleaner, just it all comes off. But that's not what you want to do with this if you want to keep any of the decals at all. So it's just a nice boring wiping with cotton and water, and it slowly takes it off. So I'm going to just keep doing that until nothing comes off anymore, and then I'll switch to the oil, the sewing machine oil, and see what other little stuff that'll take that the water doesn't get. The idea being there is that if Singer if Singer painted their machines with something that was damaged by sewing machine oil, then they would get feedback on that pretty quick, and it would cost them a lot. So one thing you can probably be sure of is that the lacquer on here and the decals are pretty impervious to sewing machine oil. So I'm just going to keep working on that this morning and not get too creative. I have the bobbin winder off, and I'm going to take the little tension, the thread tensioner off, so that I can get around get the flat surfaces clean instead of like working around something like this. This looks terrible, but everything on it is good. I really don't want to just disassemble this. I might throw it in a sonic vibrator and see if that kind of makes it look a little less like it's been out in the rain for 30 years. And then we'll see. But I got to get this a little better. But I prefer not to take this entirely apart and polish every piece. We'll see. All right, well, I finished that. I didn't find that the oil worked as much of a cleaner, in that not really much was on the tissue. So, yeah, I don't know. But it's still kind of a necessary step just to kind of gloss everything over and as a protectant. But yeah, I didn't find that the oil really pulled up new stuff. Also, the Sonic jewelry cleaner didn't really help out much with these pieces. They still look like they've been out in the rain. So since they are working and they're kind of complicated, I'm not going to go any further with it. I'm going to put them back on the machine. And if it bothers me in the future, they're right on the surface. You just pull them off, and I can clean this up as like its own project someday. But until I see this thing working, I'm not going to take apart something like this that most likely is working perfectly. All right, so here's what I ended up with the more intricate parts. A lot of stuff I've seen online. They talk about different polishes and stuff. This didn't really seem to have much underlying enamel or lacquer left. It was really just kind of some pitted rust. So I didn't have any luck just polishing it out. But most of these I took a steel brush to, and then polished it, and doesn't look like new, but at least it's not going to be the ugliest part of the whole thing. And it has at least it's glossed up a little bit, and there's no actual orange on it that just tells you it's something rusty. And I'll probably have to keep a little bit of oil on these to prevent them from flash corroding again. But that's where we're at with that. All right, so now we're on to the case. So we've got some maybe paint stain there. Looks like some rings. Finish is in pretty rough shape. But I really think I can get away with making this good enough for the living room without really sanding the whole thing down. Structurally, looks pretty good. Here's a couple things I want to show you though. All right, so this is loose. Now, if I look at this, this case here is really not attached to anything down here, so of course it's going to wiggle around. There's a hook here that is supposed to do something, but it doesn't really hang on to that. I don't know how it could have been made to that, just as a stop. It seems like you would want to secure this down. There's no reason that this would need to be like free floating, so that when you close it, it doesn't interfere with that. So I don't know. The other thing here, this part's loose, and I think it's mostly down there. Just needs some more nails to kind of pin it down. I bet there was a plate here because it looks like some nail holes, but I may not worry about replacing that. So the next step here is to get the kit out and start really getting all the dust out. Then a moist towel and really get it clean, and then we'll talk about trying to restore the finish a little bit. All right, so mission accomplished with some of the internal parts, the inside wood. I put some polyurethane on that just to be not really truthful to the time period, but will just be a really solid, enduring sort of moisture block. But now I'm gonna, while that's dry, I'm gonna tackle the more the surface stuff that you see, generally speaking. And so what I have found to work pretty well is some goop. Really has a gasoline sort of smell. It seems to, you rub that on with some 4-0 steel wool, and it really kind of reliquefies the finish, in the past anyway. Then you wipe that down, and then you can use some Restore Finish. Kind of adds a little bit of darkness back to it, any like really gapped spots. And then some feed and wax, just kind of keep it a little glossy. So this is a nice starter piece that is visible. So we'll see if we can bring a little bit of life back to this. So this is maybe a better side-by-side comparison with the drawers here. So they were both cleaned with a damp cloth, and then the bottom one, I've done the goop, and it doesn't really, I wouldn't say quite a miracle, but it definitely kind of dissolves that haze off, those really, really fine, almost pretty much microscopic sort of scratches that give you a haze, and at least glosses it up. Quick little check-in here. This side I have done with the Restore Finish. Definitely puts a little bit of luster back in it as compared to this side, which is only up to the, having done the goop. All right. So I think it's going to look okay, but this is not going to be like new. We got some little paint spots here that didn't come up. The rings didn't really, these water rings didn't really come up. But that's okay. This is more of a just trying to make it the best it can be without really redoing it. If you really start scraping on this veneer here, you're going to end up with bigger problems. And I'm really not looking to replace the veneer and try and make this thing look exactly like new. So I'm going to keep on up with that and keep getting this thing back together. All right, well, here's the conclusion of this. I think I've got it done. The final problem I had to fix, it seemed like everything was working fine, but it just wouldn't actually do what it was supposed to under here with the bobbin. Now, the bobbin looked okay. It didn't feel rough. It wasn't rusty. But I concluded that the problem there was that it really needs to be just really polished. Okay, because the very tip of the bobbin grabs that thread at sort of an odd angle. And then the thread needs to like easily expand over the bobbin and then around behind it. And so if it's just, if it's not really, really smooth, just the tiniest bit of friction with that weird sort of angle that it catches it at, and it won't slide around the bobbin like it's supposed to. So I took the bobbin out, really polished it up, and then it worked. And I've been using it some. I'm not sure that I would have went and bought one of these if I didn't have one. But once you have one, it's like you start to think of a few things that need sewing. And so, in conclusion, that I was pretty lucky. The main two things that were wrong with this was the bobbin needed to be polished and it wasn't oiled. We all know it's a machine, needs oil, but this thing, no kidding, it won't work if it doesn't have oil, and that was why it didn't work. It would move in some, but it really needs to be oiled up. That's why they got all these dots in it. And so now it's out in the living room, and when I need to sew, I'll fire her up, and it's kind of a neat little piece. It doesn't look like new, but that's just fine. Thanks for watching.